thank you very much everyone for joining us for our panel discussion today to celebrate International Women in Engineering Day. I'm Yvonne Slater and I'm from Glasgow Science Centre, and this is a joint event that's been hosted between us and also STEM Glasgow. So this is the first time we've done this kind of thing. I think it should be a really exciting event, and hopefully we'll be doing more of these. So we have a panel of 4 speakers today to talk to you about their career path and the work that they do. And we have 4 speakers who come from quite varied backgrounds and are all at different stages in their careers. So I'm going to just introduce the panel members to you. So we have Dr. Pam Anderson, who is from AAC Clyde Space and who is Head of Institutional Engagement there. And we have Dr. Jumai Abioye, who is from Providence, and she's a Plasmid production manager. We also have Dr. Than from Boeing, who is a quality engineer. And we have also Sophie Ewan, who is from Opito, and she's a 4th year apprentice oil and gas technical engineer. We're hosting this today with 2 members from STEM Glasgow. So we have Chloe Kennedy from Chapel High School, and also Hannah Christie from STEM Glasgow. So Hannah and Chloe are going to be asking questions of our panel members first of all, and then we'll hand over and take some questions from the floor at 10 minutes at the end, so you can ask questions of our speakers today. So thank you very much. It's lovely to be able to celebrate International Women in Engineering with you all, and I'll hand over to Chloe and to Hannah. Thank you.
Hi. If you've got any questions throughout this, you can add them to the chat and we'll look at them at the end with the summary. So I'm going to go straight into the questions. So the first question is open to the full panel. So who, what was your biggest inspiration, or what was your turning point that made you want to pursue a career in STEM?
Do we all answer at once? I'll go.
Yeah, you can put up your hand. Well, actually, we're in the classroom. You can put up your
hand. Okay, I'll go first. This is a very easy one for me. It was my dad, and still is my dad. He's an electrical engineer. I watch him growing up, watching him fixing things around the house. Always take an interest in what he does. At the same time, because of that, I knew that I didn't want to be an electrical engineer because I was not interested in stripping wires. I rather, work with metals. I rather work with bigger stuff. So there was this joke, ongoing joke with my dad. He would say to others that, oh, she's making the same mistake I made. And I'm like, no, not really, Dad. I went for heavier things, which is mechanical engineering, So I did that. However, our path have met, not planned, but he is working in the quality management side of things, and naturally I fell into that space, and here I am, a quality engineer.
Jumai, would you like to go next?
Oh, we're gonna go that way now. When I was really young, I watched an Asian documentary where they were converting waste into tissue paper. It was actually fecal waste. So, but I remember sitting in front of the TV. I was probably about 8 or 9, and just seeing the huge engineering, and just watching something that was already condemned being converted into something that was useful again. And it was probably not even in English, but I was just fascinated by it, and I decided I was going to be a petrochemical engineer for some reason. But in my culture, to some extent, girls are not supposed to be engineers, and the only universities where the engineering courses were going to take place, my parents didn't want me to travel that far. So I ended up taking a different route that still drove me back to the same sort of route. Well, the same sort of destination, but yeah, that was the inspiration for STEM. It was thinking, I really wanted to understand how you could take waste and make it into something useful. But I was like 8 or 9.
Pam?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be a primary school teacher for as long as I can remember. And then when I started secondary school, I had a really amazing science teacher who would have been in first year. And then I went on to take physics, and I think she recognised that I had an interest in space probably before I really did. And she encouraged me to take part in the Scottish Space School when I was in 6th year at high school. So I applied for that and was lucky enough to get to go to Houston to the Johnson Space Centre as part of a big group from all over Scotland. And I think that's what really sparked my interest in becoming an engineer specifically. I think up until that point I had no idea what an engineer actually did. And we got to meet lots of NASA astronauts and engineers, and I think that kind of opened my eyes that actually to get a job in the space industry, engineering would be a kind of good route in there. So that was a kind of turning point for me to realise that actually you don't have to be an astronaut to work in the space industry, and that actually engineering would be a good route in. So yeah, for me it was a really, really inspirational teacher who kind of fostered an interest and made me realise that there was an opportunity there.
Sophie, lastly, yourself?
So I chose to go down this route. I've got family that work offshore. It's quite a popular job choice from where I'm from. Also, I chose the path because it would enhance the strengths of the subjects that I enjoyed at school, such as science and maths. Also, the training and the skills base that I got, I could and can diversify into other industries, never knowing what the future holds.
Quite a varied, we've got from family members to teachers there to things that you see, and even culturally where you're from has kind of influenced that, which is great. Chloe and I discussed when we were kind of writing the questions that this resource is going to be used for pupils when discussing DYW, and a question that's always asked, especially by girls in our classes, is in relation to STEMs, how many women actually work in STEM, how many women are actually in the companies and the industries that you would apply to. So this next question sort of got 2 parts. So firstly, how many women currently work in your company or your industry at the moment, if you know? And secondly, what barriers have you faced and had come up against throughout your STEM career as a woman in STEM? We'll go backwards this time. We'll start with Sophie.
So I was quite surprised. I just found out the statistics this morning. For our company as a whole, offshore based, only 2% are females, which I could relate to because in my team over the whole installation, I'm the only female. But we have 44% of the office workers or onshore workers are female. So that gives the company a total of 27% as female.
And has there been any barriers that you've faced as a woman in STEM kind of throughout your career?
To me, I don't feel like I've had any barriers in the workplace, in the learning side of things. I'd say the biggest barrier was that the lack of knowledge of this opportunities to females. That would be my only advice, is for students to do research for it to be available, like known to them.
Nice. Pam, we'll go to you next. So how many women are kind of in your company or work in your industry, and have you faced any barriers, if you faced any at all, as a female working in STEM?
Yeah, space industry is not great. You look around the room sometimes and it's a very samey kind of room, not as much diversity as I think we would like to see. Having said that, in doing a bit of research, I discovered that the UK Space Agency is kind of the best in the world for diversity, and they seem to have almost 50% female to male ratio, which I think is absolutely staggering for our industry. and kind of to be a real world leader in that, I think is such an amazing showcase. They have, you know, some really high profile women kind of at the forefront of the UK Space Agency, and I think that's a really powerful kind of message, for the rest of our industry in the UK, but also taking that to kind of international audiences. For my kind of discipline, so for mechanical engineers, it tends to stick around about 10% fairly consistently, of kind of Institute of Mechanical Engineers members tends to be about 10%. So it's not great. It could be better. And I think, you know, just going back to what Sophie was saying, I think it's about a visibility thing. So for me, I haven't really faced any real barriers either. I think the initial barrier was knowing that engineering was a good career option, and that there was opportunities within a space industry in the UK that were accessible for people.
So a wee bit more like the same visibility really is the kind of main barrier that you both faced, and that's been from when you were at school right through. Jumai, you next.
Because I'm in more of a softer engineering field, so biomedical engineering or biotechnology, where you're actually taking engineering techniques and methodologies and applying it to real life. There is a fair representation of women in the workplace. Usually the challenge with representation of women tends to be in leadership. Not really at the bottom. You usually have a lot of women, starting from your classrooms straight into the workspace. But actually it's when you start going into leadership that you actually see most of the women drop off. And usually that also kind of restricts your ability to aspire as well to leadership. And I think it tends to be things that have to do with leadership qualities that make us feel like we're not wanted in the room, or we're not able to take those positions, because if you're a woman, you're probably going to be extremely considered as bossy if you behave in the same way that a man does in the same field, or just general life decisions that sometimes women tend to make that let us drop off the workspace. So I would say women are fairly represented in my company. It's a startup, and they've been really, really focused on diversity. We are from everywhere in the world, and there are 9 women and 5 men. So it's fairly actually tilted towards women, and that's because newer companies are much more focused on allowing women to grow. And I've been able to, I've seen myself grow a lot more. But I would say one of the key barriers that I've seen in my own career has been just finding women who are willing to mentor other women. Most of my mentors are men. It's most of the people who have supported me in my career have actually been men. I would say all of them actually. And most of the challenges I've had has been with women. So it's really interesting, just also women just supporting and helping other women grow, and girls supporting girls to study engineering. That would be just us being our cheerleaders and pushing each other on and letting each other know that, yeah, we can do this. It's not limiting, or it's not a guy's thing. It is. We're supposed to be here, and we are bringing a wealth of knowledge and strength and a different way to think into the workspace.
So more of a kind of like positive culture then, a supportive culture to like mentor
women.
Lastly, not forgotten about you. That would you like to give us a wee bit of a background to like how many women you work with, and also if you have faced any barriers, if any, in your own STEM career?
Sure. Boeing as a company, we are very diverse. So we are an aerospace company, but under Boeing we have defense sector, we have the commercial sector. So the numbers do vary depending on the sector. But if we look at specifically, engineering in the aerospace industry, we're still looking at around 30% of female representation, which is still low, but definitely more than before. In terms of barrier, though, I resonate a lot with Sophie. It always brings me back to that one moment when, you know, I struggle, or sort of like a turning point. So I also worked on the oil rigs at the start of my career in the North Sea. I was based in Aberdeen. So the misconception, my biggest barrier, and still sometimes, is misconception. It's not within the company or not within, you know, it's in general. Okay, misconception that the females carrying out a male job, you know, that is the biggest barrier, especially on the oil rigs, where you are a field engineer. You are, you know, carrying these tools up and down those stairs on the platform. They are rather heavy, but you are also required to hold the handrail with one hand, and you have to, you know, you have the other hand to carry what you need. In the North Sea, is very windy, and I'm a very small person, very tiny person. So this was a challenge, and I felt really sorry at one point, really sorry for myself. Why isn't anyone coming to help me? You know, please, you know, there are people walking around, people, men, you know, like, come and help me. But I can see that they pull themselves away because, you know, if I want to be equal, I need to show that I am equal. I can do this, you know, strength or no strength. So, you know, that I felt sorry for myself. At the same time, it taught me a big lesson that we can't, you know, go say we need to promote women in engineering, at the same time not helping ourselves, trying to be in that equal space. Mm-hmm. So we, you know, that is the balance that we need to hit. But definitely the biggest barrier for me is the misconception. And as soon as we can try to, you know, eliminate or try to reduce that, that will be better, yeah.
And that certainly is, as was mentioned before, and Pam also mentioned her teacher as well, because start at a very young age at school level, all the way through that kind of change in culture and misconceptions, which is something I know that a lot of schools are looking at just now. Chloe, we'll move on to the next.
So one of the things in schools that young people are asking constantly is pathways. They're really wanting to know how people have got to where they are currently. So what we're going to do, we're going to direct this at Sophie to begin with, just because we feel that being an apprentice, she's probably closer to the young people's pathways, but then we're going to open it up to the rest of the panel. So Sophie, could you briefly describe to us what your STEM pathway has been so far?
So I've mentioned about my school subjects that were my strengths, what I enjoyed, etc. Coming up to the end of sixth year, it was all about your UCAS application, all about applying to universities. So I'd applied to Edinburgh University for geology. I'd gotten an unconditional, so it was just assumed that that's where I was going. But I didn't want to do it. I felt like I had to apply to university because that was the only options that were getting pushed my way. I then discovered, going down to one of the local colleges on an open evening to see any other opportunities, I discovered the people program, the OTAP program, and the Shell Engineering Scheme. So I applied to both and I got accepted into both. However, when I was a bit younger, I didn't feel like I was ready to leave home. So I chose the Shell Engineering Scheme because it was based within driving distance from the house. So I stayed at home. That was 2 years there, which gave me 2 HNCs, one in electrical and one in controlling and measurement. However, when we finished that, I was looking for a trainee position offshore, and at that point the oil industry wasn't a great position. Nobody wanted to take on a trainee, so I went back to Apito and joined the OGTAP scheme as a process technician apprentice, which I feel has benefited me in a way because I had the background knowledge from the Shell Engineering Scheme, plus also being a bit mature to come offshore. I think that's really made a difference than coming in 2 years previous. And now here I am, just finished my apprenticeship, and I've been lucky enough to get a staff position with the company. So I'm really happy. I'm in a really fortunate position with all this going on.
Well, that's fantastic. It's great to see that you actually chose something at university and then decided to completely change your mind and go a different pathway. I think that's it's nice to see, and I think it's nice for the young people to see as well. Is anyone else willing to share their pathway with us?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I kind of took that traditional filling in UCAS forms, applying to university. Went to Strathclyde Uni to do mechanical engineering, and then at that time there was, when I was just finishing up, there was a big space research kind of grant awarded to Strathclyde Uni that was kind of really kickstarting a lot of their space research activities. I'd absolutely never considered doing staying on to do a PhD or to do research, and I just kind of thought that was the best route into space at that time. So I stayed then to do a PhD within the Advanced Space Concepts Lab at Strathclyde, so kind of 3.5 years research there. At that time I got to do placement over at NASA in California over the summer, which was such an amazing experience. And then I kind of stayed at the university, so having thought that I was kind of desperate to get out of university and research and get into industry, I stayed for a couple of years and took on various kind of research posts and knowledge exchange posts, and then joined Clyde Space the first time round, and I've kind of since left and taken up other posts and come back. So I've moved around a lot. I've taken on a lot of different opportunities, some technical, some non-technical, and I think that's a kind of key point, is that actually the diversity of opportunity that engineering offers up. I think just it gives you a good skills base to be able to kind of move on and do different things, whether you stay in a technical role or move to, you know, kind of spoke about leadership positions, or, you know, business development or project management, or I think it gives you lots of different skills to kind of pick where you want to go.
Okay. Does anyone else want to share their pathways? I think we've got a little bit of time anyway.
Oh. I think that I may be revealing my age by sharing my pathway, because I don't think this pathway is available at the moment. So I may be wrong. So when I finished my GCSEs, because I knew I wanted to go into engineering, A-levels at the time was a 2-year route. But A-levels would have given me the option of, you know, maybe change my mind in between, or at the end of it, I could still go into different streams of STEM. But I was adamant that I'm not going to change my mind. Engineering is for me. So I went on to foundation engineering course, which is a 1-year course specifically catered for those who want to go into engineering. And then that shortened a year for me. And then I went on to bachelor's in engineering for 3 years. So I got my bachelor's then. After that, I worked for a bit, for about 6 months, but I always knew that I wanted to further my studies. I have this thing where if I don't want to look back and wonder what if, you know, and it's too late. So I did my master's, and then of course after my master's I went on to PhD. I applied for a few just to see what the flavor is out there and what kind of sponsorship I can get. I did get some scholarship to my PhD, so I went on to do that. What I would say is, although my background is mechanical engineering, you know, while you are in that subject, you still have options to choose different projects within your degree. So I have never chosen just mechanical projects. So my, you know, one of my projects is my first bachelor's project is to do with biomedical engineering. It was still very new then, you know, in the late 90s. So it's an exciting topic. And then of course in masters, I chose solar engineering as my project. And my PhD was actually started off as a dental scalar project. It's you know, electromagnetics. It's not mechanical. It's in between. So yes, so engineering is, I'm not just saying it because we are in that sector, but it definitely has a lot of options for you to decide on later on, pick on, try on. And as Pam said, within your career, once you start your career, you know, there's the basics and the training that you get from an engineering course, problem solving, you know, that inquisitive mindset will definitely help you in the long run.
That's fantastic. And lastly, Jumai.
Okay, so for me, I had my I moved from Nigeria to the UK, so maybe not applicable to people who are in high school in the UK. I finished my undergraduate degree in microbiology, so very, very biology based. So if you love biology, it doesn't necessarily preclude you or exclude you from engineering. I knew I wanted to do something that had to do with converting waste to wealth. And since my parents didn't let me go into a full engineering role, I thought microbiology was a good way to do it, because what you do then is you can take the engineering principles that you learn and apply it to cells, and then you can engineer cells and make them do things faster and better. And so when I finished my undergraduate, I lectured for a short bit in Nigeria. Then I moved to the University of Glasgow, where I had my master's in biotechnology. And during my biotechnology course, I fell in love with this area called synthetic biology. And synthetic biology is basically the application of engineering to biology. It's that simple. So it's all the same principles of abstraction. You're thinking about turning cells and genes into nuts and bolts and making it easy for people in their backyards to do biology. And so I decided to pursue a PhD doing that, and I was designing a tool for targeting HIV, which is really cool because it was exactly taking engineering principles and just trying to use it to make just the same tools that doctors use better for other diseases. And after that, I moved to Canada, and I worked as a postdoctoral researcher. I learned how to code. And I started doing the same engineering I was doing in the lab that was very biology based. I started doing it on the computer. So I was modeling proteins using code, and I taught myself how to use my Linux computer, and it was really exciting. So I was stuck between the lab and being this nerd who starts in front of a black screen, just like typing away. And also after that, I moved to industry, and now I work at a company where I help in designing different processes. So it takes both the biology with a lot of engineering, process management, project management, and now we're working on a COVID vaccine. So it's been a very interesting journey, being able to take the original love that I had for engineering and apply it to what I did in my undergraduate, even though it seemed like it was off engineering. But because of the new fields that allow they allow the merging. So there is no more that traditional mechanical engineering, civil engineering. A lot of walls are getting broken down, and a lot of fields are getting to collaborate together and to sort of do things that wasn't available to do, say, 50 years ago, because now all those walls are getting broken down and people are able to talk to each other and actually come up with solutions that apply to mankind. So yeah, so if you're doing biology and you love biology and you don't know how a passion for engineering and for tools applies, there are new fields now that allow you to do that. There are robotics that allow you to merge into medicine. There are so many cool ways to still be an engineer, but do it in a softer way. Yeah.
It's actually really exciting to see that all of you are from different pathways, but these are using quite similar skills and these are intertwining, and it's exciting to see that they're actually moving with the times. Hannah, I'll pass you on for the next question.
Actually, that all leads really well into the next question, which is for us in schools, especially in Scottish schools, skills-based learning is really massive at the moment, especially with the DYW, the Developing Young Workforce Agenda, and also our career education standard. And that's a focus for us, skills-based learning from early years, nursery, right through to beyond secondary school. So we were wondering if you could share with us what skills you utilise most in your career. Some were mentioned a moment ago, but what are the most important skills you feel to be a success in a STEM career? That will start with yourself, and then we'll try and change up the order a bit.
Sure. I think for me, most definitely is problem solving skill set. Breaking it down when you have a problem, breaking it down into little chunks and then solve them and then put them back together. I think that is the most useful skill set that I definitely carry with me, and just be inquisitive about everything. If you're unsure, ask, test it out, enjoy what you do, enjoy the testing, enjoy the experiments, enjoy the results. The results will drive you to your decisions and to your next steps. And I think that for me I'm very much a data-driven person. So analyzing data definitely has helped me broaden my mindset and decision making. So even if I don't have to have, a set of 500 numbers, data for me to make a decision, but if I can picture, a lot of yes or no's into a data set and then make a decision, that skill set definitely is very useful.
Sophie, will we turn to yourself? What skills do you utilise most in your career?
Yeah, as has been said, problem solving, I won't go too much into that, but I find it very satisfying once we've had an issue, we're all managing to work together to solve the problem. That's a big part of our job, but even bigger is what I've just said, teamwork and communicating with each other. It could be quite a dangerous environment if vital information isn't passed on to opposite shifts or just to your co-workers. But yeah, teamwork and really good communication is number one in ours, I would say.
Great, I think, and that marries up actually really well with that, what you said there as well, because you also work with people, and when you're analysing data that's been collected from multiple people across the team and kind of bring all that information together. Pam, yourself?
Yeah, I'd absolutely echo what's been said already. I think number one and number two are definitely problem solving and communication, and teamwork as well. I think those are the three things that spring to mind. I think it doesn't really matter what area of engineering you work in, those three things are absolutely critical to your kind of day-to-day. I'd say probably just to add something else to that hasn't already been said, just kind of endeavour and just a bit of kind of persistence, and no matter what problem you're faced with, as Stan said, breaking that down into something small until you can get to the bottom of it and just keeping going no matter how big a problem seems to begin with. I think that that real will to solve problems and to get to the bottom of something.
That resilience to keep going even if something, yeah. Jumai, yourself, what skills do you utilise most in your job every day?
If I'm gonna go the ones I use most, I would say that they've been said already: problem solving, communication, teamwork, and like Pam said, a lot of grit, just staying with something until it works. I pride myself in just like hyper focus, so I struggle with ADHD, and that's something that really is a strength that I then see as no longer a problem that I bring to my work is hyperfocus. I just apply grit as much as I can until I solve a problem. I'm not going to be able to stop. And so instead of seeing ADHD as a problem in not being able to have adequate executive functioning skills, as people would like to say it, I tend to focus on the strength of it and say, I am a problem solver and I would fix it. So I tend to be the fixer in my company. If anything is wrong, just go to Jumai, she'll fix it. She wants. stick with it. So if you're that, then yeah, this is for you.
I think that's nice that everybody echoes almost the same skills they're used across the board, and obviously communication, teamwork and problem solving are massive and a real focus for schools anyway, and it's something that I think young people really enjoy developing in the classroom and also outside. Chloe, will we move on to the last question of the session?
Yeah. So this one is one that constantly is coming up, and obviously we're here to celebrate women in engineering, but I feel that it's not just women in engineering, it's opened up to everyone. So thinking about diversity and equality, what opportunities does your company currently offer for young people or school leavers that might be interested in following into a STEM career? So I'm going to start with Pam.
Yes, we've had over the years kind of a number of work placements, school people coming in to do a bit of work experience, and just kind of get a feel for what it's like to work in a space company that's in the middle of the city in Glasgow, and get a wee bit of experience about what the different teams do, and then kind of we usually ask them to prepare a presentation on something that they've kind of built up through that week. We also have had people from university coming in to do internships over the summer and work, for a more prolonged period within one of the teams. And then we found that actually they've been quite successful in then bringing people back to the company once they leave university. So yeah, we've done quite a lot of different things over the years. I think being still a reasonably small company, it's sometimes difficult to accommodate the demand for that kind of thing. But as a sector, a space sector within Scotland and the UK, there's so many opportunities. So I think I'd just encourage young people to kind of see what's out there, and kind of put their asks out to the broader space industry as well. And there's things like spinternships that people can do at university, and a lot of companies will take people on. So there's definitely opportunities out there for young people to get involved.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to see, especially because we can't physically offer that in schools. So it's good to see that there's work experience opportunities there. Sophie, is there anything that your company currently offers?
So the OFTA scheme is open for anyone 16 years and older. So you could leave in 4th year if you have, with standard grades when I was at school. So I think it's National 5s now.
Yeah.
So the options there, you just have to be 18 by the time you were becoming to mobilise offshore. My sponsoring company, they take on new apprentices yearly, and I've been very fortunate to have had a really good wide base of skills to learn on site.
Great. It's great to see. It's actually really exciting because I can only imagine actually working offshore, that would be a really great opportunity for the young people. Jumai, is anything in your company stick out that supports the young people?
Company is in Canada, so
is there any work experience for young people to come over?
I think it probably makes more sense for me to talk about the opportunities that were available at Glasgow Uni when I was doing my PhD there. And I remember that we used to have high school students come over for internships over summer, and that was really good. I remember having a student that worked with me for over a month, and she got to do excellent research in the lab. She was just going into final year of high school, and she had also done she had also sort of seconded a doctor in the past, and just done a lot of placements across different places to see what she really, really liked. And we worked together for over a month, and we ended up becoming really good friends because she eventually got into Glasgow Uni. And it was really beautiful to see the transition from my high school baby who was just going into the last year of high school to first year of uni and second year of uni. And it was a blessing to watch that happen. So I think it would be good for people to also check what's available at the universities around them, because just the same way we had those internship opportunities, there would probably be a lot of labs that would be willing to take high school students to maybe check out research in mechanical engineering or to check out research in biomedical engineering. It's something to look out for. There are labs that are very open for even if it's just to check it out for a week and see what the life of a researcher looks like, or to do an internship for a month. I think that's an opportunity to explore.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting as well. It's doing it from the university perspective, because a lot of young people find it daunting just going into the physical university space. So being able to actually work with the students must be a really great opportunity for them. Fan, have you got anything from Boeing? Do they offer anything currently?
Yeah, we have a wealth of a suite of offers from starting from school age to while you are in the career. Before I get to that, I definitely want to emphasize that if anyone is undecided, work experience, in any form or internship is the best way to go, and don't be discouraged by it. If I had known at the time, I would have done the same. So what Boeing can offer or does offer today is we have work placements or work experience. It can be a day or up to a week. And then I will go in order, and then we have internships and apprenticeships. Internship can be a summer internship up to a whole year of paid internship. Apprenticeship program is really, really good. Our footprint in the UK is mainly the defense maintenance sector. So you will be working with the Chinooks and the C-17s, the big planes around the country. In the apprenticeship program, we also have a very good research center up in Sheffield called AMRC, very state of the art. We have a manufacturing center also in Sheffield that manufactures one part for the commercial airplanes, and their apprenticeship program is amazing. So we have all of that, and if you're a graduate, finish university, would like to join us for a permanent role, we have graduate programs which runs between 2 to 3 years in rotation. You get a lot out of that program. You get to work in various roles. It is great. Now, and as an experienced person, if you're joining the company or once you progress on, we also have a learning together program or degree program. That just means that the company sponsors candidates to further their studies. A lot of my colleagues are doing MBAs, which is sponsored by the company while they're working. And I have a couple of colleagues also are doing a leadership technical program with MIT, also sponsored by the company, and there are various sorts of programs available. So starting from school age to whilst you're in the career.
Fantastic.
So I think that's more or less the kind of formal questions finished, and we are going to open up in a couple of minutes to any Q&A from any of the guests joining us. But before that, just to summarise, Chloe and I both have a quick question to ask you. It's very short though. So firstly, I'll go around. Can each of the panellists summarise your experience as a woman in STEM in 3 words? So if you were to summarise your experience as a woman in STEM in 3 words, what would they be? Sophie, we'll start with yourself.
Intriguing, challenging, and rewarding.
Okay, great. Jumai, will we move on to yourself next?
I had challenging in there, so I would say
I have the same. That's absolutely fine.
I would say it's exciting, challenging, and life-giving.
Okay, great. That, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I too have challenging. That's not a surprise there. So challenging, empowering for sure. Empowering, and misconception.
And lastly, Pam?
Yeah, I had rewarding, exciting, and wide-ranging.
Great. So I will have some similarities there, but what I really like is they were all, to an extent, quite positive words. So that's I can take away from that is everyone has quite positive experiences from that. Chloe, would you like to finish off?
Yeah, so lastly, what I'm going to ask for is just a bit of advice that you would give any young person looking to get into STEM. So I'm going to start with Jumai. What bit of advice would you give a young person?
Okay, I would say STEM changes the world. We are currently in a pandemic. stuck at home. And in my perspective, people in STEM are the frontline workers. We are the ones ensuring that there is food, that there is power, that there is safety, that our environment is supported. And so if you're considering something that is going to support your society come what may, whether there is another pandemic or whether there is never a pandemic, STEM is the way. Like, join us. It's exciting, rewarding.
Rewarding, definitely rewarding in the current circumstances as well. Sophie, have you got anything?
Yeah, mine would be more to school leavers. Have the confidence to get involved and try something different. Make sure that you're aware of all your options. There's other paths to go down. I've loved having a hands-on learning approach. I think it's really helped me with the theory-based knowledge to then match it up with the practical training, and I think it's gave me an overall better sound understanding.
Fran, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I think that the fact that you're thinking already to go into STEM is a huge, big step. And then the next step is eliminate or understand the doubts that you have, understand the questions. So reach out to anyone you know that who are in the STEM career path, or your teachers who are in STEM. Ask them the questions, eliminate the doubts, clear your head, and have that decision factor. I think the worst is not to reach out and make that decision yourself, and you think maybe I should have asked someone. I think for me, definitely, I rely a lot on asking a lot of people before I make a big decisions like that. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. Whichever path you choose, I think if you have a doubt, just reach out to those people. I think LinkedIn is a good resource. You don't have to be working, a really good resource for you to find people in such professions for you to reach out to.
And lastly, Pam?
I'd say that it's really important to follow something that you enjoy and that you've got an interest in, and then you're much more willing to learn more easily, and also to stick with something and have that grit, that kind of perseverance that we spoke about earlier. If it's something that you're genuinely really interested in and really enjoy, then the hard times that inevitably come in any career don't feel quite as tough when you're working on something that is exciting and rewarding as well.
Well, I think that's a really nice kind of way to summarise and kind of finalise the panel discussion tonight. As we said earlier on, this session is recording, will be used with teachers in school. They'll be able to take us back to pupils, and I think what you've all given us a really well-rounded kind of summary of your experience as a woman in STEM, how you got there, advice for other people, but also the great rewards that are available for those who pursue a STEM career, and one in engineering especially. So I think from both Chloe and myself, thank you so much for giving up the time to actually speak to us and to speak to everybody that's tuned in tonight, and to everybody else who'll be watching this as a recording in the future. And I'll just pass back over to Yvonne from the Science Centre to kind of finish up.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to give the participants a chance to ask any questions that they wanted. We have 8 minutes left, so if there's anything that you'd like to ask, please unmute yourself, put your hand up, and you can ask a question of one of our panelists. If you'd rather type the question for one of us to ask, that would be fine. But if anybody has any questions, now's your chance if you want to ask anything of our panelists. Dave, you have a question. Would you like to unmute yourself? We'll take your question.
Hi there. You mentioned that, or a couple of you mentioned that you didn't really feel like there were any barriers to you getting into engineering. So do you think the biggest issue in terms of getting diversity, Do you think that's visibility? And if so, how do you think we can improve that in terms of bringing more women into engineering?
Who would like to answer that one first?
I'm happy to take a stab. I think that's exactly it. I think visibility is a critical issue. To get people interested in engineer, whether you're male or female. I think there's no real kind of public awareness of what an engineer does. And I think when I decided to go and study engineering, people said to me, "Oh, why do you want to go and fix cars?" You know, it's like it's not quite what I'm going to do. And I think in other countries, you know, in Germany and in places like that, they've got a real awareness of what an engineer does and what it, you know, the benefits to society that we've touched on. So I think awareness is critical. And then I think, you know, taking that from a kind of female perspective, the lack of role models, we spoke about, you know, women in leadership positions. And I think until we've got that visibility and really positive, you know, I kind of go back and forwards about my views on role models, but if young girls at school can't see that that's an option, then we're never going to solve this problem.
I think that's really great to hear about the awareness and the role models, and for people to find out about other areas of engineering. Like many people, I'm sure, wouldn't be aware of the link with biology and being a bio, or the opportunities that are available in space. So it's really good to have heard about that. Does anybody else want to come in and answer James' question as well?
I think. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I would agree and say it's all back to that misconception and just the lack of knowledge of what these jobs actually involve and how to get involved with them. And also starting from a younger school age to let students know that that is a pathway, that's an option to get involved in something like that.
Yeah, it's such, engineering is really, really broad. I think if you know, Google engineer and go to image, what brings up is hard hat lab coats. Until that Google image changes to a variety of engineering roles, you know, that is when we will reach our goal. And that's what we need to keep trying to change, is that we don't just wear hard hat and lab coats. Or coveralls, right, Sophie? So it's yeah, that it is a wide range, really, really wide range of spectrum.
Ellen, you have your hand up with a question.
Yeah, sorry. I just thought it's kind of maybe a talking point rather than a question, but I think one of the hardest things that I find myself and my colleagues who are identify as female, and generally just like girls who want to be prominent in STEM in any way, especially with engineering, I feel like there's always this pressure that you have to be as good as, if not better than basically all of the guys. And I think that is, I don't know if any of you on the call might relate with that, but I think that's a really horrible mindset that we potentially, I don't know if teachers necessarily even play a part in that, but I did feel in school as if it was sort of, I don't know, you couldn't be like you couldn't be average at physics and maths and get into engineering as a girl necessarily, but you could be a bit more average as a guy and people would still say, oh yeah, you can do engineering. I think we have to sort of not, like a lot of the women that I see in my workplace are overachieving women, like proportionally more of them are overachievers than of everyone else. And that's to be expected because it's a more natural pathway for men to go in, or it was previously seen that way. So I think we should always try and encourage, you know, anyone, regardless of their gender identity or whatever, to do engineering, purely because it's actually just such a good occupation to be in. Like your pay's pretty much always going to be pretty decent, like your jobs are pretty much always going to be there. And I think it's actually quite harmful that we don't push it more with everyone. But, you know, particularly I think there's, as I say, like you don't have to be the best at all of those subjects to be in engineering as a woman. So I don't know, thoughts on that maybe?
Yeah, I think I definitely I'm passionate about this. Definitely want to chip in on this. So when I got to college, I didn't perform well. I won't say what the scores were. What I want to say is that engineering is not easy. I know my nieces who are in engineering now, they're finding it not easy. It's not easy. Yes, it's good to have good scores. Yes, good to understand your theory. But you got to think of bigger picture. You got to be all round, really. When you go into your career, when you go into your work, think about the basics, the problem solving skills, the basics and how you utilize it. Your team working. That, when you do your team project, you're not just put together to finish your lab work or project. Think bigger picture, because you're there to work together with different type of people and how you utilize those skills. During your education path, those are the things that if you can try to focus on, you will come out as an all-round trained person, and your grades will come with it.
I think I agree that when we focus on emphasizing the skills that are necessary, and when we show to young people the actual, like Sophie said, the reality of what people do in engineering. So when people actually know this is what the life of an engineer looks like on a day-to-day basis, then it's clearer what they really need or don't need to get there. Like, okay, maybe I don't need to be as physically, built up as a guy. I don't have to have the muscles. Or when I was in high school, I was in my school was broken into the pure science and the applied science. And the applied science class where the people who wanted to go into engineering. So I was, very early on, I made that decision to go into class that was applied science. And in my class, there were 90-something boys and like 7 girls. So just automatically, we were tomboys. We were expected to be a certain type of girl to be in that class. And I think it's just breaking those misconceptions and letting girls of every, that like every type of clothes or behave in every type of way, know that the skills that they possess and the ability to manage their time and to manage projects, the ability to think through problems, they can bring that in, or even if they can't, whichever strengths that they have, that they can bring it into the workspace. And maybe it would have to do with more documentaries, like for me, in what helped me to know, oh, this was something that I loved. I loved the way the process was designed, or whether it's going to be bringing, actual real life engineers into classrooms to actually talk to people about what they do on a daily basis, or whether it would be, just having young people come to school to talk about these things. It would have to be maybe the teachers pushing for this in a way, and the parents as well, just trying to create more awareness. I think we settled on awareness being the major problem. Like, how do we then break that barrier? What would be the tools that we can use to let students know that it's more than just the Google search images that show hard hearts, right?
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of our time, so I just wanted to say thank you very much to the panel members for sharing your experiences and tips for people who are thinking about getting into engineering. Oh, Dave. Oh, sorry, you're saying. Thank you very much, everybody. It's really interesting, interesting to hear about your experiences. So, thank you very much to everyone who took part, and thank you to Chloe and Hannah for hosting this.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everybody that this will be available on our YouTube channel from the 23rd of June, so from International Women in Engineering Day. We'll put this up on our channel for everyone to see, so please do share. Thank you very much.